Howdy y'all, Banjo Ben here again, banjobenclark.com. This is your home for all things instructional for banjo, guitar, and mandolin. That right there was a cool little bluesy melodic lick that I stole out of a song called Jalapeno Flashback by Jeff Scroggins. It's one of my favorite tunes to play. I've played it for years and years, and I love that lick. And we're going to use that lick to introduce a subject to you that we're going to be talking about today, and that is melodic banjo playing. For those of you who are just starting to play banjo, you're going to get familiar with that word melodic, and a lot of you will wonder what exactly that means. So today we're going to first of all explain to you what is melodic banjo playing, where did it come from, why do we use it, why do you need to know it, and then we'll introduce you to some banjo melodic exercises out of the key of G that I think you're really going to like. And then later on, as we progress through this series, we're going to introduce melodic playing in different keys as well. So let's talk about, first of all, what exactly is melodic banjo playing? First, let's try to answer what exactly is melodic banjo playing versus this three-finger scrug style that we hear so much about. That can be answered fairly easily, in that melodic banjo playing is more like what a fiddle might do. When you think about a fiddle playing a melody, they're staying right on the notes. They're not jumping around a lot generally, unless they're doing that big fancy shuffle bow and stuff. They're going to stay very fluid. If you can imagine the melody as kind of a line graph, whereas banjo has notes coming in from everywhere, it would be very jumpy. Whereas a fiddle melody would be more like this. It doesn't mean that it can't take deep dives and reach peaks, but generally it's going to be fairly straight. So what we try to do when we're playing melodic banjo is somewhat imitate that and use our positions and use different licks to stick perhaps more closely to the melody. Now I can try to sit here and explain it to you all till I'm blue in the face, but I think an example, a musical example, would probably serve the best way to explain the differences to you. Let's take a very standard fiddle tune. This is one that you all will need to know anyway at your local jams. This is one that I've taught on YouTube and my website before, called Bill Cheatham. And I'd like to take the first phrase of that song, that first 8 measures, and play it in Scruggs type style. And then what I'd like to do is take a version of one of my mentors, Alan Mundy. I've taught his version on YouTube before, and I'd like to play his melodic version. And I think you'll be able to hear exactly what I'm talking about. The melodic sounding more like what a fiddle would play, versus the Scruggs style, which plays the melody, but it's just at a different approach. Here's the Scruggs style. Now let's play it with a melodic approach using the Alan Mundy version. Now you could probably hear why we call it the more melodic version. It followed the melody, especially if you're familiar with that tune. It follows the melody very closely. It's very similar to what a fiddle could play. As a matter of fact, if I had a fiddle in my hands, I could probably play every one of those notes in Alan's version, note for note on the fiddle. Whereas in the Scruggs version, it would be just about impossible to jump around and grab all those notes. Both of these styles of playing have their place, and I believe that a truly rounded player can grab from each of those. Of course you need to be grounded in Scruggs style playing. That's what you need to start out playing. It's what you have to learn. It's the best. Earl is the best. But once you get a hold of that, I think it's really great to introduce some of this melodic playing so that it can expand your playing to a new dimension. And I'd like to introduce you to a lot of great melodic banjo players out there, such as Bill Keith, such as Bela Fleck, such as my favorite Alan Mundy, and get you to learn some of those licks, some of those methods, so that your playing can grow as well. Now we answered the question of what is melodic banjo playing. Let's talk about now why melodic banjo playing. Why would we want to use it? And what I'm going to do is introduce a very familiar old tune, We Wish You a Merry Christmas, and I'm going to play it 3 different ways. The first way, we're going to play it all on one string, as if we just had a 1-string banjo, and then we'll go on from there. Now that might seem kind of a silly way to play that song, but surprisingly a lot of people put themselves in that position to where they don't know how to use the banjo's fretboard to get the notes that they want to get. We're obviously playing the very exact melody of that song, and those are very particular notes. So if we want those exact notes, we need to figure out the best way to play those. Let's take it 1 degree further. I'm not really going to introduce any melodic playing, but we are going to understand that the notes that we're wanting to play, that we just played on that single string, are available at other parts of the banjo. Let's do that. Now, as you notice, we just played the exact same notes in that second version that we played in our first version. All we did was figure out where we could grab those other notes further up the neck using the other strings. And that's really good. That's one step in the right direction. But what we may find is that maybe a little bit too hard to play. We're doing some single string type stuff, which is easy to do whenever we're playing slow. But if we were to speed it up, it's a little tougher to play on the same string for more than one note. We definitely are going to need to know how to do that, and we're going to use it. But what I would like to introduce is a completely melodic version of those exact same notes, thinking about these melodic positions and putting that knowledge to use. Now, what did you notice about that last version? First of all, I noticed that my hand did not move as much. Now, I had to shift positions from down the neck to up the neck a couple times, but once I was in those positions, I really didn't have to do a lot of left hand movement. And what does that mean for you and I? That means you and me. That means that as we progress in our speed, you're generally going to be able to play things easier when you're looking at it from a melodic standpoint. One of my favorite newer banjo players of today is a guy named Noam Pilkany, and he plays with Chris Thiele and the Punch Brothers. And he is just absolutely amazing to me. If you hadn't checked him out, check him out. But one thing that I love to watch about his playing is he's very positioned bass. And so he doesn't work any harder than he has to work to get the notes that he wants to get. And he gets every single note that he wants to get. Now, the guy is an absolute freak athletic on the banjo fingerboard, but he thinks about it smartly because he's playing 190 miles an hour a lot of times. And so you'll hear all these notes, and you've experienced this, you hear all these notes and all these cool combinations, and it doesn't add up when you look at his left hand because it's just not moving that much. It's just going in positions. And that's what is a big advantage of melodic banjo playing. Another thing that you probably notice is just the smoothness and the sustain of the notes. Granted, in my other versions, I didn't play them as sustaining as I perhaps possibly could, but in the melodic version, it's much easier to get that overtone and those rings, that smoothness that you're used to hearing from these great melodic banjo players. Now what I'd like to do, this is where the rubber meets the road. I'm going to show you an incredible exercise out of the key of G where we're going to introduce these melodics, and it's going to be a fun exercise to play, that one that you can get up every morning and play, and it's going to start surgically implanting this melodic playing into your brain so that it will start showing up in your everyday playing as well. Here we go.